In a distant corner of the vast universe, the mighty Galactic Empire reigns supreme. With thousands of star systems under its control, the Empire's power seemed limitless. Its advanced technologies, massive fleets of spaceships, and countless armies of genetically engineered soldiers made it an unstoppable force that few dared to challenge. The Empire was ruled by a council of wise and ancient beings known as the Elders. They had guided the Empire to greatness over millennia, expanding its reach and influence across the galaxy. The Elders believed that it was their destiny to bring order and stability to the chaotic universe, even if it meant subjugating or destroying civilizations that stood in their way. One day, the Empire's long-range scanners detected an unusual signal emanating from an unexplored region of space. The signal was weak but persistent, indicating the presence of a previously unknown civilization. Intrigued by this discovery, the Elders dispatched a reconnaissance mission to investigate. The mission was led by Admiral Zorgax, a seasoned veteran of countless military campaigns. Zorgax commanded a small fleet of the Empire's most advanced scout ships, equipped with state-of-the-art sensors and weapons. As they approached the source of the signal, Zorgax and his crew were surprised to find a small, unremarkable planet orbiting a yellow star. Scans of the planet revealed the presence of a primitive civilization, barely out of the industrial age. The inhabitants called themselves humans and had only recently developed rudimentary space travel capabilities. Zorgax scoffed at their backwardness, confident that the Empire could easily conquer and assimilate them. However, as Zorgax prepared to report his findings back to the Elders, something unexpected happened. A human spacecraft, no larger than a fighter, suddenly emerged from the planet's atmosphere and approached the Imperial fleet. Zorgax was initially amused by the audacity of the tiny vessel, but his amusement quickly turned to shock when the spacecraft opened fire on his ships. The human weapons were primitive by the Empire's standards, but they were surprisingly effective. The Imperial scout ships' shields flickered and failed under the onslaught, and several of them were heavily damaged or destroyed outright. Zorgax was forced to retreat, his fleet limping back to Imperial space in disarray. When Zorgax presented his report to the Elders, they were deeply concerned. No civilization had ever dared to attack an Imperial fleet before, let alone with such success. The Elders realized that the humans, despite their primitive technology, posed a potential threat to the Empire's dominance. After much deliberation, the Elders came to a decision. They would send a message to the humans, offering them a chance to surrender peacefully and become a vassal state of the Empire. If the humans refused, the Empire would unleash its full might upon them, crushing their civilization and claiming their planet for its own. The message was broadcast across the galaxy, transmitted on every frequency the Empire knew. It was a simple ultimatum: submit or be destroyed. The Elders sat back and waited for the humans' response, confident that they would soon be adding another star system to their vast empire. Little did they know that the humans were not as weak or primitive as they appeared. The attack on Zorgax's fleet had been a carefully planned operation designed to test the Empire's capabilities and resolve. The humans had been aware of the Empire's existence for some time, thanks to their own long-range scanning technologies, and had been preparing for this moment for decades. As the Empire's message echoed across the stars, the humans mobilized their forces. They knew that they could not hope to match the Empire's numbers or firepower, but they had other advantages. They were a resourceful and adaptable species, with a long history of overcoming seemingly impossible odds. They had a fierce determination to protect their way of life and a willingness to fight to the bitter end. And so, as the Empire marshaled its armies and prepared for war, the humans made their own plans. They would not go quietly into the night, but would stand and fight for their right to exist. The stage was set for a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy, a war between the mighty Galactic Empire and the small but defiant human race. As the Galactic Empire's warning resonated through the cosmos, the human colony buzzed with activity. The news of the impending invasion spread like wildfire, and the colony's leaders knew they had to act fast. They had always known that the day would come when they would have to defend their home against the Empire's might, but they had hoped it would not be so soon. The colony was led by a council of elected officials, each representing a different aspect of human society. There were scientists, engineers, military leaders, and diplomats, all working together to ensure the survival of their people. They had long been preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, they felt a sense of trepidation. The council met in a large, circular room at the heart of the colony. The room was dominated by a massive holographic display that showed a map of the surrounding star systems. The map was dotted with red markers, each representing an Imperial fleet moving towards the colony. "We have to act fast," said the head of the military, a grizzled veteran named General Graves. "The Empire's forces will be here within days, and we need to be ready." The council members nodded in agreement, and they began to discuss their options. They knew that they could not hope to match the Empire's numbers or firepower, but they had other advantages. They had been studying the Empire's tactics and technology for years, and they had developed their own unique strategies and weapons to counter them. One of the key advantages the humans had was their ability to adapt and improvise. While the Empire relied on rigid discipline and overwhelming force, the humans were more flexible and creative in their approach to warfare. They had developed a range of unconventional tactics, from guerrilla warfare to psychological manipulation, that could help them level the playing field against the Empire's superior numbers and technology. The Council decided to implement a multi-pronged strategy to defend the colony. They would send out a fleet of their own ships to meet the Empire's forces head-on, while at the same time deploying ground troops to key locations around the colony. They would also use their advanced hacking skills to disrupt the Empire's communications and sabotage their weapon systems. As the council members worked out the details of their plan, they received an unexpected visitor. A small, unassuming spacecraft landed on the outskirts of the colony, and a lone figure emerged from its hatch. It was an alien, but not one of the Empire's genetically engineered soldiers. Instead, it was a member of a species that had long been oppressed by the Empire, forced to serve as slaves and laborers. The alien approached the council with a message. It claimed to represent a network of rebel groups from across the Empire, all united in their desire to overthrow the elders and their tyrannical rule. The rebel groups had heard about the human colony and its defiance of the Empire, and they wanted to offer their support. The council was initially skeptical of the aliens' claims, but after some discussion, they decided to hear it out. The alien explained that the rebel groups had been planning a coordinated uprising against the Empire for years, but they needed a catalyst to spark the revolution. The human colony's resistance against the Empire could be that catalyst, inspiring other oppressed species to rise up and join the fight. The council members were intrigued by the aliens' proposal, but they knew that allying with the rebel groups would be a risky move. If the Empire discovered their involvement, it could lead to even greater retaliation against the colony. However, they also knew that they needed all the help they could get if they were to have any chance of defeating the Empire. After much deliberation, the council decided to accept the aliens' offer of support. They would coordinate their efforts with the rebel groups, sharing intelligence and resources to maximize their chances of success. The alien departed, promising to return with more information and supplies in the coming days. As the council members watched the alien spacecraft disappear into the sky, they knew that they had just taken a momentous step. They had allied themselves with a group of rebels from across the Empire. And in doing so, they had become a symbol of hope for all those who yearned for freedom from the elders' tyrannical rule. The stage was now set for a conflict that would determine the fate not just of the human colony, but of the entire galaxy. The humans and their rebel allies would face the full might of the Galactic Empire in a battle that would test their resolve, their ingenuity, and their courage. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the humans would not go down without a fight. The Empire's warships emerged from hyperspace on the fringes of the human colony's star system, their sleek, black hulls bristling with weapons. At the center of the formation was the flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed the other ships. On its bridge stood Admiral Zorgax, his eyes fixed on the view screen that showed the human colony's planet. "Scan the system," he ordered. "I want to know what defenses they have in place." The ship's sensors probed the space around the planet, and the results were displayed on the screen. Zorgax's eyes widened in surprise. The humans had assembled a fleet of their own, a ragtag assortment of ships that looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts. But what caught his attention was the formation of the ships. They were arrayed in a pattern that he had never seen before, a complex web of interlocking positions that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "What are they doing?" he muttered to himself. Suddenly, the human ships opened fire. A barrage of missiles and energy beams struck the Imperial fleet, catching them off guard. Zorgax watched in horror as several of his ships were hit, their shields flickering and failing under the onslaught. "Return fire," he bellowed. "Destroy them." The Imperial ships responded with a volley of their own, their powerful weapons tearing through space towards the human fleet. But the humans were ready. Their ships moved with surprising agility, weaving and dodging through the incoming fire like dancers in a choreographed performance. As the two fleets closed in on each other, the battle began in earnest. The humans' tactics were unlike anything Zorgax had ever seen. They used their smaller, more maneuverable ships to dart in and out of the Imperial formations, striking at weak points and then retreating before the Imperials could respond. They also used decoys and sensor jammers to confuse the Imperial targeting systems, making it difficult for the Empire's ships to get a lock on them. On the planet's surface, the human ground forces were also putting up a fierce resistance. They had fortified key locations around the colony, using a combination of conventional and guerrilla tactics to hold off the Imperial troops. They had even managed to capture some of the Empire's own weapons and equipment, turning them against their former owners. As the battle raged on, Zorgax grew increasingly frustrated. The humans were proving to be a more formidable opponent than he had anticipated. He had underestimated their resourcefulness and their will to fight. Suddenly, a new wave of ships appeared on the edge of the system. At first, Zorgax thought they were reinforcements for the human fleet. But as they drew closer, he realized that they were not human ships at all. They were a motley assortment of vessels from across the Empire, flown by the rebel groups that had allied themselves with the human colony. The rebel ships joined the fray, adding their firepower to the human fleet. Together, they began to push back against the Imperial forces, inflicting heavy damage on Zorgax's ships. The Admiral watched in disbelief as his fleet was slowly but surely being beaten back. On the planet's surface, the human and rebel ground troops were also making headway. They had managed to breach the Imperial lines in several key locations and were now pushing towards the colony's central command center. If they could capture that, they would be able to coordinate their efforts and strike a decisive blow against the Empire. As the battle reached its climax, Zorgax knew that he was on the verge of defeat. The humans and their rebel allies had proven to be a formidable force, one that he had gravely underestimated. He had one last card to play, a weapon of devastating power that could turn the tide of the battle. But as he reached for the activation switch, he hesitated. Something about the way the humans and rebels fought, the way they worked together despite their differences, gave him pause. For the first time in his long career, Zorgax began to question the Empire's methods, its relentless pursuit of conquest and domination. In that moment of hesitation, the human and rebel forces struck the final blow. A volley of missiles struck the bridge of Zorgax's flagship, breaching its hull and exposing the Admiral to the cold vacuum of space. As he felt the life draining from his body, Zorgax had a moment of clarity. He saw the Empire for what it really was, a tyrannical regime that cared nothing for the lives of its subjects. With his last breath, Zorgax whispered a prayer to the gods he had long abandoned. He prayed that the humans and their allies would succeed, that they would topple the Empire and bring freedom to the galaxy. As the Admiral's body drifted away into the void, the battle continued to rage around him. But now, the tide had turned. The humans and rebels fought with renewed vigor, inspired by their victories, and the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. The Empire's forces were in disarray, their ranks thinned, and their morale shattered. They began to retreat, fleeing back into the depths of space from whence they had come. The human colony and their rebel allies had won the day, but they knew that the war was far from over. The Empire would not take this defeat lightly, and they would be back, stronger and more determined than ever. But for now, the humans and rebels celebrated their victory, their hearts filled with hope and the knowledge that they had taken the first step towards a brighter future. They had shown the galaxy that the Empire was not invincible, that even the most powerful tyranny could be brought to its knees by those who were willing to stand up and fight for what they believed in. The battle between the Empire and the Human Rebel Alliance is in full swing here. It highlights the innovative and unconventional tactics employed by humans and their allies to counter the Empire's superior firepower. The rebels' arrival marks a turning point, bolstering the human resistance. Zorgax's character arc takes an interesting turn as he begins to question the Empire's ethos in the face of the humans' determination, unity, and valiant stand. While the Empire is dealt a blow, the ending hints that the war is just beginning. The underdogs have won this battle, but a protracted conflict for the galaxy's freedom awaits. In the aftermath of their victory against the Empire's forces, the human colony and their rebel allies knew that they had to press their advantage. They had dealt a blow to the Empire's pride and shown that they were not invincible, but they also knew that the elders would not take this defeat lightly. They would be back, with even greater numbers and more advanced weapons. The leaders of the human colony and the rebel groups met to discuss their next move. They knew that they needed to strike at the heart of the Empire, to disrupt its command structure and weaken its hold on the galaxy. But to do that, they needed more than just military might. They needed a plan, a strategy that would allow them to outmaneuver and outthink their enemy. The rebel leaders brought with them a wealth of knowledge about the Empire's inner workings. They had spent years studying its structure, its weaknesses, and its vulnerabilities. They knew that the key to defeating the Empire lay not in brute force, but in precision strikes and psychological warfare. Together, the human and rebel leaders crafted a plan. They would launch a series of coordinated attacks on key Imperial installations, targeting supply lines, communication hubs, and military bases. At the same time, they would wage a propaganda campaign aimed at undermining the Empire's authority and sowing dissent among its subjects. Leading the charge would be a team of elite operatives, handpicked from among the best and brightest of the human and rebel forces. They would be the tip of the spear, striking at the Empire's most heavily guarded targets and paving the way for the larger offensive to come. Among these operatives was a young human soldier named Kai. He had distinguished himself in the battle against the Empire's forces, showing bravery and resourcefulness that had caught the attention of his superiors. Now he had been chosen to lead a team of rebels on a mission deep into the heart of the Empire. Their target was a heavily fortified Imperial research facility, where the Empire's top scientists were working on a new type of weapon, one that could tip the balance of the war in their favor. Kai and his team would infiltrate the facility, steal the plans for the weapon, and destroy the prototype before it could be used against the human and rebel forces. As they made their way through the facility's defenses, Kai and his team encountered resistance at every turn. Imperial guards and security systems barred their way, but they pressed on, using every trick and tactic they had learned to overcome the obstacles in their path. Finally, they'd reached the heart of the facility, where the weapon's prototype was being held. But as they prepared to steal the plans and destroy the device, they were confronted by a figure from Kay's past, someone he had thought long dead. It was his old mentor, a grizzled veteran of the Empire's military who had taken Kai under his wing when he was just a raw recruit. He had taught Kai everything he knew about warfare and survival, but he had also been a true believer in the Empire's cause, one who would stop at nothing to see its will carried out. Now he stood before Kai, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. He knew that Kai had betrayed the Empire, had turned his back on everything he had been taught. But he also knew that he had a duty to fulfill, a loyalty to the elders that went beyond any personal connection. The two men faced each other, their weapons drawn, each knowing that only one of them would walk away from this encounter. But as they prepared to do battle, Kai saw something in his old mentor's eyes, a flicker of doubt, of uncertainty. He seized on that moment of hesitation, appealing to the man's sense of honor and justice. He reminded him of the atrocities that the Empire had committed, of the innocent lives that had been lost in its relentless pursuit of power. He asked him to consider the possibility that the Empire was not the force for good that he had always believed it to be. For a long moment, the old soldier hesitated, his loyalties torn between his duty and his conscience. But in the end, he lowered his weapon, his eyes filled with a new understanding. Together, Kai and his old mentor made their way out of the facility, the stolen plans in hand, and the prototype weapon destroyed. They knew that their actions would have consequences, that the Empire would not rest until they were hunted down and punished for their betrayal. But they also knew that they had struck a blow for freedom, for justice, and for the countless lives that the Empire had oppressed and destroyed. They had shown that even the most loyal of the Empire's servants could be turned, that the seeds of rebellion could take root even in the most unlikely of places. As they made their way back to the human colony, Kai and his team knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But they also knew that they had taken the first steps towards a brighter future, one in which the galaxy would be free from the tyranny of the Empire and its elders. And so, with hope in their hearts and fire in their eyes, they pressed on, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the spark that would ignite the flames of rebellion, the heroes who would lead the charge against the Empire and bring about a new era of freedom and justice for all. In the wake of Kay's successful mission, the Human Rebel Alliance saw a surge of support from across the galaxy. Word of their victories against the Empire spread like wildfire, inspiring other oppressed species to take up arms and join the fight for freedom. The Empire, meanwhile, was in disarray. The loss of the research facility and the defection of Kay's mentor had dealt a severe blow to their morale and their sense of invincibility. The elders, who had once seemed like untouchable gods, now appeared vulnerable and fallible. But the Empire was not about to give up without a fight. They still had vast resources and a powerful military machine at their disposal, and they were determined to crush the rebellion before it could gain any more momentum. The elders dispatched a new commander to lead the fight against the rebels, a ruthless and cunning warrior named Draxus. He was known throughout the Empire for his cruelty and his single-minded devotion to the cause of galactic domination. Draxus wasted no time in launching a series of brutal attacks against the Human Rebel Alliance, targeting their supply lines, their communication networks, and their civilian populations. He used every dirty trick in the book, from biological weapons to propaganda campaigns, to try to break the rebels' will to fight. But the Alliance held strong, thanks in no small part to the leadership of Kai and his team. They had become the face of the rebellion, the heroes who had struck the first blow against the Empire and inspired others to follow in their footsteps. Kai knew that the key to victory lay not just in military might, but in winning the hearts and minds of the galaxy's people. He and his team launched their own propaganda campaign, using every means at their disposal to spread the message of freedom and justice. They infiltrated Imperial communication networks, hijacking their broadcasts and replacing them with messages of hope and unity. They staged daring raids on Imperial outposts, freeing prisoners and stealing supplies to distribute to those in need. And they reached out to other rebel groups and resistance fighters across the galaxy, forging alliances and building a network of support that stretched from one end of the Empire to the other. As the war raged on, Kai found himself drawn to one of his fellow rebels, a fierce and beautiful warrior named Zora. She had lost her entire family to the Empire's brutality and had vowed to dedicate her life to bringing them down. Together, Kai and Zora fought side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They knew that the odds were stacked against them, that the Empire's power was vast and their own resources limited. But they also knew that they had something the Empire could never destroy: hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a galaxy free from oppression and tyranny. And they were willing to fight for that hope, no matter the cost. As the conflict reached a fever pitch, the elders grew increasingly desperate. They knew that they were losing ground, that the rebellion was growing stronger with each passing day. In a last-ditch effort to turn the tide, they unleashed their most terrifying weapon yet, a planet killer, capable of destroying entire worlds at the push of a button. The Human Rebel Alliance knew that they had to act fast. If the Empire succeeded in using the planet killer, it would be a devastating blow to the cause of freedom. They had to find a way to stop it before it was too late. Kai and Zara volunteered to lead a mission to infiltrate the planet killer's control center and sabotage it from within. They knew that it was a suicide mission, that their chances of survival were slim to none. But they also knew that it was the only way. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could tip the scales in favor of freedom. As they made their way towards the planet killer, Kai and Zara shared a moment of quiet reflection. They knew that they might not survive the coming battle, but they also knew that they had no regrets. They had fought for what they believed in, had given everything they had to the cause of justice and freedom. And now, as they prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice, they knew that their legacy would live on, that their example would inspire others to carry on the fight. With a final embrace and a whispered promise to see each other again in another life, Kai and Zara steeled themselves for the battle to come. They knew that the road ahead would be hard, that the Empire would not go down without a fight. But they also knew that they were not alone, that they were part of something greater than themselves. They were the spark that had ignited the flames of rebellion, the heroes who had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest of empires could be brought to its knees. And so, with courage in their hearts and fire in their eyes, they charged forward into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the guardians of hope, the champions of freedom, and they would not rest until the galaxy was free from the tyranny of the Empire once and for all. The story continues to build on the momentum of the Rebel Alliance's successes and the Empire's mounting frustrations. The introduction of Draxus as a ruthless new Imperial commander raises the stakes and intensity of the conflict. Kai and his team's propaganda efforts to win support and build alliances showcase a different kind of battle being waged alongside the military one. The budding romance between Kai and Zara adds an emotional layer to their shared commitment to the cause. The threat of the Empire's planet killer weapon heightens the urgency and danger, forcing the rebels into a high-stakes mission. Kai and Zara's sacrificial willingness to risk everything for the greater good underscores the depth of their heroism and the magnitude of what's at stake. Kai and Zara's mission to infiltrate the planet killer's control center was fraught with danger from the very beginning. The Empire had fortified the station with layer upon layer of security, from automated defense systems to elite guard units. But Kai and Zara were not alone. They had assembled a team of the rebellion's finest warriors and infiltrators, each hand-picked for their skills and their unwavering dedication to the cause. Among them was a grizzled old soldier named Rax, a veteran of countless battles against the Empire. He had lost an arm in one of those battles, but had never lost his fighting spirit. He served as a mentor to the younger rebels, teaching them the tricks of the trade and the importance of never giving up. There was also a brilliant hacker named Lena, who had once been a slave in the Empire's data mines. She had taught herself to code in secret, using her skills to sabotage the Empire's systems from within. Now she put those same skills to work for the rebellion, breaking through the planet killer's firewalls and security protocols. Together, Kai, Zara, Rax, Lena, and the rest of the team made their way deep into the heart of the planet killer, fighting their way past every obstacle in their path. They knew that time was running out, that the Empire could unleash the weapon at any moment. As they approached the control center, they were confronted by Draxus himself, the ruthless Imperial commander who had been tasked with crushing the rebellion. He was a formidable opponent, a master of both physical combat and psychological warfare. But Kai and Zara were not intimidated. They had faced worse odds before, and had always come out on top. They engaged Draxus in a fierce battle, their weapons clashing and their wills tested to the limit. In the end, it was Rax who dealt the decisive blow. Using his cybernetic arm, he managed to get a grip on Draxus's weapon, twisting it out of his grasp and turning it against him. With a final defiant roar, Rax fired the weapon, sending Draxus tumbling into the abyss below. But the battle was not yet won. The planet killer was still active, its countdown timer ticking away towards destruction. Lena raced to the control panel, her fingers flying over the keys as she tried to hack into the system and shut it down. Kai and Zara stood guard, fending off wave after wave of Imperial reinforcements. They knew that they had to buy Lena enough time to complete her work, no matter the cost. As the timer ticked down to its final seconds, Lena let out a triumphant shout. She had done it. The planet killer was disabled, its destructive power neutralized. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. But the team's joy was short-lived. As they made their way back out of the station, they were confronted by a sight that made their blood run cold. The Empire had launched a massive counterattack, a fleet of warships bearing down on the rebel base with all the firepower at their command. Kai and Zara knew that they had to get back to the base as quickly as possible, to warn their comrades and prepare for the coming battle. But as they raced towards their ship, they were confronted by a figure from their past. It was Kai's old mentor, the one who had once served the Empire, but had defected to the rebellion. He had been captured by the Empire and subjected to their torture, his mind twisted, and his loyalties broken. Now, he stood before Kai and Zara, a broken shell of the man he had once been. He pleaded with them to surrender, to give up the fight, and accept the Empire's rule. But Kai and Zara would not be swayed. They knew that the Empire's promises were empty, that their mercy was a lie. They had seen too much suffering, too much destruction, to ever trust the Empire again. With heavy hearts, they left Kai's mentor behind, racing towards their ship and the battle that awaited them. They knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that the Empire would not rest until the rebellion was crushed once and for all. But they also knew that they had something the Empire could never take away: hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a galaxy free from tyranny and oppression. And they were willing to fight for that hope, to give everything they had to make it a reality. As they took to the stars once more, Kai and Zara looked out at the vast expanse of space before them. They knew that somewhere out there, the Empire was waiting, its forces massing for the final battle. But they also knew that they were not alone, that they were part of something greater than themselves. They were the heart and soul of the rebellion, the spark that would ignite the flames of freedom across the galaxy. And so, with hope in their hearts and fire in their eyes, they flew onwards towards their destiny, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the guardians of the galaxy, the champions of liberty, and they would not rest until the Empire was brought to its knees and the galaxy was free at last. In this penultimate part, the mission to disable the planet killer reaches its climax. The varied skills of Kai and Zara's team, Rax's combat prowess, Lena's hacking abilities, are highlighted as they overcome formidable obstacles, including a showdown with Commander Draxus. The successful sabotage of the superweapon is a momentous triumph, but the celebration is cut short by the revelation of the Empire's colossal counterattack. The confrontation with Kai's broken mentor adds a poignant, personal layer to the larger conflict. Kai and Zara's unwavering commitment to the cause, even in the face of this betrayal and the daunting Imperial assault, exemplifies the unbreakable spirit of the rebellion. The ending sets the stage for the final, decisive confrontation, with the stakes higher than ever and the rebels' resolve tested to the utmost. The rebel base was in chaos as Kai and Zara's ship touched down. The Empire's attack had come without warning, and the rebels were scrambling to mount a defense. Fighters scrambled to launch, while ground troops manned the base's gun emplacements and fortifications. Kai and Zara wasted no time in joining the fray. They knew that every moment counted, that the fate of the entire rebellion hung in the balance. They raced to the command center, where the rebel leaders were already gathered, poring over maps and battle plans. There was a sense of desperation in the air, a feeling that this was the rebellion's last stand. If they failed here, the Empire would crush them once and for all, and the galaxy would be plunged into darkness. But Kai and Zara refused to give in to despair. They had come too far, fought too hard, to let the Empire win now. They rallied the rebel troops, inspiring them with words of courage and determination. Together, they mounted a fierce defense of the base, fighting off wave after wave of Imperial attackers. They used every weapon at their disposal, from blaster rifles to jury-rigged ion cannons, to keep the enemy at bay. But the Empire's forces were relentless. They pounded the rebel defenses with a barrage of laser fire and proton torpedoes, slowly wearing down the rebels' resolve. Kai and Zara knew that they couldn't hold out forever, that they needed a miracle to turn the tide of battle. That miracle came in the form of a single ship, a battered old freighter that had seen better days. But at its controls was a figure that Kai and Zara recognized instantly. Kai's old mentor, the one who had betrayed them on the Planet Killer station. He had escaped from Imperial custody and stolen a ship, determined to make amends for his past mistakes. Now, he flew that ship straight into the heart of the Imperial fleet, a kamikaze run that caught the enemy completely off guard. The explosion was tremendous, a blinding flash of light that lit up the sky like a second sun. The Imperial ships were thrown into chaos, their formation broken and their weapons disabled. Seizing the moment, the rebel forces surged forward, launching a full-scale counterattack against the disoriented Imperial troops. Kai and Zara led the charge, their weapons blazing and their spirits soaring. The battle raged on for hours, a desperate struggle for survival and freedom. The rebels fought with everything they had, knowing that this was their last chance to strike a blow against the Empire. In the end, it was Kai and Zara who made the difference. They fought their way to the Imperial command ship, boarding it in a daring raid that caught the enemy completely off guard. They fought their way to the bridge, where they confronted the Imperial Admiral himself. It was a battle for the ages, a clash of wills and ideals that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Kai and Zara fought with all their strength, their blades flashing and their hearts pounding. In the end, it was Zora who struck the final blow, her blade finding the Admiral's heart and ending his reign of terror once and for all. The Imperial fleet, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat, fleeing back into the depths of space. The rebels had won. Against all odds, they had struck a blow against the Empire that would be remembered for generations to come. The galaxy was free, at least for now, and the rebels could finally rest and rebuild. But Kai and Zara knew that their work was not yet done. The Empire was still out there, licking its wounds and plotting its revenge. They would need to be vigilant, to stand ready to defend the galaxy whenever the need arose. For now, though, they could celebrate. They had achieved the impossible, had brought hope to a galaxy that had known only despair. They had shown that even the mightiest of empires could be brought to its knees, that the power of freedom and justice could never be extinguished. As they looked out at the stars, Kai and Zara knew that they had been part of something greater than themselves, something that would endure long after they were gone. They had been the guardians of the galaxy, the champions of liberty, and their legacy would live on forever. And so, with hope in their hearts and fire in their eyes, they turned their faces towards the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the rebels, the fighters for freedom, and they would never rest until the galaxy was truly free at last. In this climactic part, the Empire's all-out assault on the rebel base tests the rebels' resolve to the utmost. Kai and Zara's leadership and the rebels' desperate, valiant stand showcased their indomitable spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. The unexpected return of Kai's mentor, seeking redemption through a sacrificial act, provides a turning point that throws the Imperial forces into disarray. This allows the rebels to seize the initiative and launch a daring counterattack. In the aftermath of the rebel victory, the galaxy was forever changed. The Empire's grip on power had been shattered, and a new era of freedom and hope had dawned. The rebel leaders formed a new galactic government, dedicated to the principles of democracy, equality, and justice. Kai and Zara, the heroes of the rebellion, found themselves at the center of this new order. They were hailed as saviors, their names spoken with reverence and awe across the galaxy. They were offered positions of power and influence, but they turned them down, knowing that their true calling lay elsewhere. Instead, they formed a new organization, the Guardians of Liberty, dedicated to protecting the galaxy from any future threats to freedom and justice. They recruited the best and brightest from across the galaxy, forming a team of elite warriors and agents who would stand ready to defend the innocent wherever they were threatened. For years, the Guardians of Liberty kept the peace, intervening in conflicts and crises across the galaxy. They battled pirates and slavers, warlords and tyrants, anyone who sought to oppress or exploit the weak and the vulnerable. Kai and Zara led from the front, always ready to put themselves in harm's way for the greater good. They inspired their team with their courage and their compassion, their unwavering commitment to the cause of freedom. But even as they fought for justice, Kai and Zara knew that the galaxy was still a dangerous place. The Empire may have been defeated, but there were always new threats on the horizon, new enemies to be faced and overcome. One of the greatest of these threats came from within the new galactic government itself. A faction of corrupt politicians and bureaucrats, led by a charismatic but ruthless leader named Zorax, sought to use their power for their own gain, to enrich themselves at the expense of the people they were supposed to serve. Kai and Zara knew that they had to act, to expose Zorax and his cronies before they could do any more damage. They launched an investigation, using all their skills and resources to uncover the truth behind the corruption. It was a dangerous and difficult mission, one that put them at odds with some of the most powerful people in the galaxy. But Kai and Zara would not be intimidated, would not be swayed from their course. In the end, they succeeded in exposing Zorax's crimes, bringing him and his associates to justice. The galaxy was saved from a new tyranny, and the Guardians of Liberty had once again proven their worth. But even as they celebrated their victory, Kai and Zara knew that their work was never done. There would always be new challenges to face, new threats to the galaxy's hard-won freedom. And so, they pressed on, ever vigilant, ever ready to defend the innocent and the oppressed. They knew that they might never see a day when the galaxy was truly at peace, when justice reigned supreme and all were free. But they also knew that they had to keep fighting, to keep hoping, to keep believing in the power of the human spirit to overcome any obstacle. They had seen the galaxy at its worst, had stared into the heart of darkness, and emerged unbroken. And now, as they looked out at the stars, Kai and Zara knew that they were not alone. They were part of a greater whole, a galaxy of billions who shared their dream of a better tomorrow. Together, they would keep the flame of freedom burning, would stand tall against any storm that threatened to extinguish it. They were the guardians of the galaxy, the protectors of the innocent, and they would never rest until the last chain was broken and the last tyrant was defeated. As they set out on their next mission, Kai and Zara knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that there would be sacrifices and setbacks along the way. But they also knew that they had the strength and the courage to see it through, to keep fighting for the galaxy they loved. And so, with hope in their hearts and fire in their eyes, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the heroes of the galaxy, the champions of justice, and their story would be remembered for generations to come. The end.